Hello and welcome. This is another edition of Drumset Education for Music Educators. And today we're going to do something different. Rather than having me sitting at a drum set or a drum pad or a whole elaborate percussion, I just want to do some simple, short lectures for you that can be significantly helpful to not only the way that you teach and relate to your drum students, but to the drum students themselves. What you have here, it looks like the way to open up a safe, but all drum students are going to see these four abbreviations of R's and L's. R means right, L means left, it's obvious. But what you are going to actually need to understand is that these are the basic building blocks for all drummers. There's not a professional drummer in the world today that makes his living or is in a drum and bugle corps or is even in a high school band that hasn't practiced at least right, left, right, right. Now, this four-note configuration is what we call a paradiddle. You probably already know that. And what happens is that drummers will practice right, left, right, right, and then they'll practice the opposite, left, right, left, left, until the cows come home. But what they don't practice is right, 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 left, or right, right, left, right, or left, right, right, right. The idea of these simple exercises is to build a foundation that will not only give your students better coordination in their hands, but they'll give the students better coordination between their hands and their feet. Here's what I'm talking about. Playing drums, and specifically playing the drum set, is one of the few instruments in the world that is two-dimensional. In other words, you don't see a violinist playing a violin with his feet and playing a second violin with his hands. Trumpet players only have to use their three fingers on their right hand to do the valves. They're not using fingers on their left hand. You don't see a 6-valve trumpet where you're having both hands using on the trumpet. Now, that might be an interesting concept to do, and we certainly have seen 4-valve trumpets. But for drummers, you have hands and you have feet. And if you are thinking in terms of right and left, then you will work right and left between the two hands. You will work right and left between their right hand and left foot. But then also, you need to also think in terms of right hand and right foot. So these simple exercises that are on this board all of a sudden get a little bit more complicated. And what we want to look at, observe real carefully. We have 3 right hand notes and 1 left hand. So you simply put it in the 4th spot, the 3rd spot, the 2nd spot, and the 1st spot. It doesn't matter which order you practice these in. What is important is that you work them all. Drummers, traditionally, to be honest with you, hate this stuff. They don't like it. And I think the reason that is that nobody explains to them why they need to do this. So I'm going to try and help you with that right now. I ask all of my students, what's the first part of a building that you build? I'll ask them, I said, someday do you want to own your own home? And they usually say, yeah, sure. You know, they might even be 6 years old. Sure, I'd like to have a nice house. Okay, well, when you build a house, where do you start? And the answer, obviously, is the foundation. Now, you know, sometimes, I actually had a student say, well, I would really like a nice roof. Okay, what's going to hold the roof up? Obviously, the walls. Where do the walls go? The walls go on the floor. What's another word for floor? Foundation. These are foundational exercises, and they're extremely important because if you can't play these 4 exercises cleanly and then turn around and add the opposite, which is exactly the same thing, except now we're dealing with 3 left hands or 3 lefts and 1 right. 4th position, 3rd position, 2nd position, 1st position. If you can't do these and then think in terms of moving them between right hand, left hand, right hand, left foot, right hand, right foot, and do those 4 combination exercises and do them as equally well. Let's understand what we have to remember here. Playing drums is like a chain link fence. You're only as good as your weakest link. And for my students, I try to give them real-world applications. What your students know will help them in their drum playing. I try to always make sure to connect whatever other activities my students have to their drumming. If you're a soccer player, you want to really emphasize the footwork and connect that with their hands. If they are literary writers, if their kids are really into writing, then you can connect the idea of how these different forms sound and how that can make an emotional connection to what they're doing. The other thing that's extremely important is that the musical aspect of these exercises. That's why I think a lot of young drummers really can't stand to practice these, because they don't see any musical value in it. And that's why I'll go back up to this poster here. Is that when you see this, now we're thinking in terms of maybe ride cymbal, snare drum, bass drum, hi-hat. But also you can think of it in terms of floor tom, middle rack tom, high tom, snare drum. Because drums are not just 2-dimensional, they're also 3-dimensional. You have drums that are close to you, you have drums that are away from you. You have drums that are up by your hands, you have drums by your feet. Essentially a 5-piece drum set, which is bass drum, snare drum, high rack tom, middle rack tom, floor tom. Those 5 instruments are in a cube. And when you add the hi-hat, now you have a 6th instrument, and you might even make the argument that it's actually 7 because a hi-hat has 2 cymbals involved. And just because it's on a hi-hat stand, let's remember that you pedal it with your feet, and you also can play both cymbals with sticks. Once you add the ride cymbal, now we have a 7th piece. So we have a conglomeration of instruments that are in a high position and a low position, or close to us and away from us. That's why these simple exercises now take on a completely unique position. So you want to emphasize that to your students. Say, look, it's not just left, right, left, or right, 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 left. Think of it, that right, 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 left could be high tom, middle tom, floor tom, snare drum. Or it could be 3 right foots and a left hand. There's all these different combinations. It's not just a simple matter of right, 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 left, right, 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 left, right, 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 left, right, 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 left. That sounds boring. That sounds like drudgery. But when you change it and make it ride cymbal, floor tom, snare drum, or ride cymbal, middle tom, floor tom, hi-hat. And then the question is that left? Did you pedal that with your left foot, or did you play it with your left hand? Now we're starting to get into combinations. And all of a sudden these 4 exercises go to 8, go to 12, go to 16, go to 20, go to 24, go to 48, go to 96. There is almost an endless way of musically playing this board. And then when I put up the other one, the left hand, sorry for my little dance here, when we go up this, we just double. So whatever we just practiced with the right hand, you put this one up and turn it around and start with the left, everything is double. The point I want to make is that these simple, seemingly drudgery exercises to your students are extremely important. And in fact can be fun, because once you introduce instruments into this, whether it's just a snare drum and a bass drum, you can play these exercises between your bass drum and your snare drum and make some very cool rhythms. And your students' eyes will light up. And the other thing that will be interesting is that they've heard these rhythms. They hear them every day. And once their ears connect to what they see on these exercises, the idea of these simple exercises that kids hate, all of a sudden, wait, I heard that. I know that. That's on my favorite song. That beat, I know that beat. They've heard it, but they haven't thought it in terms of L, L, right, left, left, right, left. So introduce these simple stickings, introduce these simple left and right patterns, and let them expand just from their hands, adding their feet, and then combinations between their hands and the feet, and you'll see your students' eyes light up. You'll see their minds start to think about this and process it because they've heard this. If you just simply throw this out in front of them, oh, they're all going to groan. Because we all did. I groaned when I started these when I was a little kid. But once I heard how these combinations sound on the drum set, whoa, then I really got excited. Because then what happens is that they understand why they're doing it. They have already heard it in real musical connotations. And then they'll take these ideas and start expanding on it on their own. They'll start to improvise. They'll start to add their own combinations. They will start to musically expand their own ideas. All right, so they're simple. They're easy to understand. They are the foundations of drumming, and all of your students will need to know this. I am Warren Smith. This is a pleasure of mine to be drum set instruction for music educators. Use this stuff because it works. It is a true foundation. I'm going to give you several more lectures along these lines. I appreciate you watching and listening, and I can assure you that your students will benefit from these exercises and from this understanding. Thanks a lot. I'll see you again soon. Have a great day. See ya.